Cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was. Some people get cancer and they look at a different way. I've always looked at when a door closes, something else opens. But at the time, I'd retired from the military. I'd kind of given up on my dream of ever writing a book, speaking business. I was overweight. I could have had a stroke. Anything could have happened, you know? But I got cancer. It kind of woke me up, and I just chronologized that whole experience in my book. And I take the experiences from before cancer, during cancer, what happened when I was going through cancer, and all the experiences that I learned from the staff here at the Cancer Center, and I've now gone on with them. I always talked about running a marathon. I've run 8 now. I've run 8 since I was diagnosed with cancer. I've written a book. I have speaking business. I used to do 2 or 3 classes. Now I do 4 college classes. I have so much energy. You know, Dr. Schneider asked me how I feel. I've had 2 hours sleep the last 3 days, but I feel amazing. It is. And so hopefully, you know, people will read the book. I had a job that I traveled a lot every month, and I started getting a sore throat. I had a sore throat, and it went for about 2 months. I kept going to clinic and the hospital, and they kept just kind of saying strep throat or it's a virus and going. And I knew something was wrong. I could feel it. And then all of a sudden I started coughing up some blood. And that's when I went in. They decided to do the biopsy. So did the biopsy over in Cushing Hospital, Leavenworth, and it was immediately staged and ended up being correctly. It was stage 3 cancer with a tumor on the base of my tongue, which was a little interesting because I've never smoked, I don't drink, I've been healthy all my life. So it ended up, at the end of this, ended up being caused, looks like most likely by cancer. Actually, I got to my 3-year appointment 2 years ago. And as I went through and met all the different members of my medical staff, Dr. Schneider, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Napani, and Dr. Lauston, everyone was hinting at, you know what, you got to think about writing a book. And the first thing I thought about was, that's a lot of work. That seems like a lot of work. I have a full-time job in Germany. I teach 3 to 4 college classes a semester. It's been my dream. I talk about it in the book. Right after I was diagnosed with cancer, that first 30 seconds or a minute, the first thing I thought about was the 2 things I always said I was going to do, and that was start a speaking business, and I wanted to write a book. My wife, it's been now 9 years ago, was diagnosed with leukemia. I was working in Las Vegas. I was an executive officer for a recruiting battalion, recruiting doctors and nurses. So I called a guy, his name is General Peak. He ended up being the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. He actually came a couple years ago here. I asked him to, and he spoke at KU at the Cancer Center. And so I called him and said, this is what my wife has, this type of leukemia. Where should she go? And said, well, let me get back to you. He called 3 hours later and said, he needs to go to the Cancer Center. I was like, in Kansas? He said, yes, you need to go there. So the next day they flew us, and she started treatment, and now she's 9 years cancer-free. So when I was diagnosed, there was no doubt where I was going. As a patient, when you walk through that front door, who do you think the most important person in that hospital is? And I always get told, the doctors and nurses always say, oh, it's this person, or maybe this patient rep, or this doctor. No, it is, and she's still sitting there. It's the lady that's sitting at the front desk. And she's been there for 5 years, and she's one of the first person, when I walked in the door the other day, I gave her my book. And because she smiled and said hi, I was shaking. I remember holding my piece of paper and said, I'm here, I have stage 3 cancer, I'm supposed to, see Dr. Schneider, and she grabbed my hand, held my hand and said, you came to the right place. This is the place you want to be. This is something I learned from my mom, because we didn't have much money when I was a kid. But it's that law of belief, law of attraction, the secret, whatever you may call it. But if you believe something and if you help other people, it'll come back to you. So I wrote 3 thank you notes. I wrote one to the doctor, one to the nurse, but there was a receptionist out in the hallway I got to meet getting ready for my biopsy. She was Latino, from Mexico, from Puebla, and she said to me, my dream was to come here to go to college, but my husband has left, and now I just have a child, don't have a high school diploma, nothing. And so I wrote her a note and said, I've taught at KCK at the community college for several years, and I've taught a lot of college classes. You're as smart as any of them, and you can do this. And so we fast forward to 3 months ago, and I get an email from her. And she said that I hope in 2016 in May you can be here. I'm getting my bachelor's degree in nursing, and I'm not going to stop there. I think I want to be a nurse practitioner because you talked to me about setting my goal 1 above. And so that is something that I now get the opportunity to go out and talk to people and motivate them. That's something I always wanted to do. For all 4 of my doctors at the start of my case, they closed the door, nurse went out, and they looked at me eye to eye and, said, look, process is not going to be fun. The 8 weeks radiation chemo is not going to be fun. However, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And every one of them did that. And there's a lot of places, it just doesn't happen. Doctors are too busy. They're too busy running around. And it's just the way it is. So as Dr. Schneider just gave me my 5-year pin, Dr. Kumar yesterday, Dr. Napani the day before, Dr. Louston next, it's like this is family for the rest of my life. At the back of my book, I have an email address and I have my website. And when I first started writing a book, I had a lot of heroes and people I looked up to as far as speaking, as role models. And I sent emails to everybody because they always talk about, oh, contact me anytime and I'm here to help you. No, they're living in Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and Seattle and everywhere else. They don't have time. So my promise is anybody, not just somebody that's going through cancer here at KU, but anybody, I will help them. I'll answer them back. And I get that all the time. My doctors will forward somebody to me that was just diagnosed with what I was diagnosed with, and I'm here. I think that's part of not just a legacy of a cancer patient, but when Dr. Schneider gives me this, and this is from KU, and it's from our cancer center, this is our legacy. 10% of the proceeds of my book go to the odontology and to radiation, but it also goes to the support group. I literally walked around the hospital looking for patients, talked to them and said, what situation are you in? Well, and I met one yesterday, it was amazing. I was waiting for my PET scan and she was stage 4 and you could just tell she's not having a good day. And so I just sat next to her and said, tell me what's going on. So she did. And I said, well, let me tell you my situation, where I was at. And so we talked a little about stillness. I said, I noticed you're just texting. Get off this thing. That television, turn that TV off. You know what you need to do? You need to find stillness in your body. I said, my first 3 weeks, when I was right where you were at and I'm going through it, I had kind of lost control a little bit. I just had cancer all the time, couldn't get out of my head. And right around Rainbow Boulevard here, I went to a yoga studio. And I just started doing yoga. And I quieted my body. And I told her, I said, you may have some rogue cells. You got some cancer that has obviously been diagnosed, and that's a good thing. They found it in your body. But you have 40 trillion cells. I'm a military guy. And so when we have a formation of 1,000 soldiers, that's a big formation. You got 40 trillion. But they're not going to work for you unless you quiet yourself. And so I told her, I said, here's what I use. I use Pacific Ocean. You can get them right off the internet, off YouTube. Pacific Ocean waves, close everything out, grandchildren out, husband out, everybody, silence, turn off the lights, and for an hour every day, just relax. And your body will take care of that. The other thing is, this whole thing about, I hate cancer, cancer's bad, cancer sucks, this and that, that's the whole wrong attitude. Let the doctors and nurses and the staff here at the cancer center, let them take care of that. You just visualize on being cancer-free. Listen to the music, do meditation, laugh. Whatever shows make you laugh, just concentrate on cancer-free. This middle part, don't worry about that. And that's the beautiful thing about being here. They got that fight. And next book after the next one, I have 2 more I'm kind of working on, but it's Cancer Hates Happiness, period. It does. I felt cancer leaving my body at the 4th week. At about 3 weeks, my tumor, 7 centimeters on the base of my tongue, had gone from 7 to 6. When I found stillness, I came and talked to Dr. Kumar. So excited. In my 4th week, I said, I want to be scoped. Scope me. I was like, scope me. And normally he went, really? I said, yes. And he went in there and scoped me, and it was literally, in his exact words to me, I've never seen a tumor disappear that fast. I felt it leaving my body. So between the love I get walking into the hospital, the great care, but yet as a patient, you also have responsibility to eat right, to find stillness, stay off the internet, get off WebMD and don't start Googling stuff. Let the doctors here, let them handle everything. You do what you want to do to get yourself to relax. I think is that people hear different ways of being able to handle what's going on in your life, because sometimes it just becomes too much. You walk into a cancer center and you expect the doctors and nurses to do everything. The lady at the front desk can be the most generous, wonderful person in the world. She can be. And all the doctors are smiling. I mean, it really, it's almost like, I was telling my wife, it's almost like Pleasantville. When you walk into the cancer center, everybody's happy, which is odd. But yet when you leave here, guess what? When you leave out those doors and you're driving home, it's you. Every morning before you get up, before your feet hit the floor, you write down on a piece of paper 3 things that you're thankful for, whatever they may be, before you think of anything else. Don't let a negative thought in your mind. And what happens is your subconscious is about 90% stronger than your conscious. So after 2-3 days, you just get used to every day. Now you're starting off in a positive way. And it changes you. So instead of waking up the first thing and it's like, oh no, I have chemotherapy, I got this, and just all this negativity, start with that. And that's just a little thing that I talk to people about doing. You got to say, I am in the right place and they're going to take care of me. As soon as that happened, everything else is fine. So I think if that happens and you believe, everything else follows. And like I said, I'm a testament. I'm living my absolute dream because the Cancer Center here took care of me.